What's going on, everybody? I'm Brandon from Walker's Woodworks. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this simple planer sled. Jig. Sled. Just watch. So a lot of you seem to really like the joiner sled that I made for the table saw. I figured I'd follow that up with a planer sled. So what this does basically is allow you to face joint boards that are either too big to go on your joiner, or if you don't have a joiner at all, this will definitely get the job done. And best of all, it's usually made out of scraps that you have laying around, or the material's really cheap. So let's get to building one. You can pretty much make these out of any 3/4 inch material. I've used plywood, melamine, and this one's made out of MDF I had left over from another project. I set my table saw fence to just shy of 12 inches because that's the maximum my planer will handle. I made this particular sled 32 inches long, but you can make them as long or short as you need. In fact, I actually have a few different sleds I keep around the shop for different length boards. Once I had it ripped to width, I grabbed my crosscut sled and trimmed off a piece that was about 2 inches, and that will be attached to the top here in a second. Now what we're going to do is take this piece, glue, clamp, and screw it onto one of the ends. It doesn't have to be perfectly flush, but I try to get it pretty close. What this piece does is keep the board you're planing from flying off the sled, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. So 2 things to make sure of when putting in the screws. 1, make sure you countersink the holes so if the planer blades do hit this piece, they won't hit the screws and destroy your blades. And 2, make sure the screws aren't too long or they will stick out the bottom and ruin your planer bed. I used 1.25 inch screws on this and they work fine for this material. If you're interested in that countersink I'm using, it's pretty awesome. I'll leave links to it and all the other stuff I use in this video in the description below for you guys to check out. Okay, so I had this slab of awesome spalted pecan, but as you can see it was pretty warped, and using this sled was the perfect way to flatten it. The first thing I had to do was make sure it was as level as possible, and I do that with these shims that you can pick up at pretty much any home store. I broke off smaller pieces and wedged those under the corners that were not touching the sled. Once I had them placed where I would minimize the most waste, I used my hot glue gun to keep everything secured. Hot glue is great for this because it will hold well enough to go through the planer, but it won't ruin the sled or the slab. Also make sure the slab is butted up against that piece we added to the top earlier. When you're feeding the sled and slab through the planer, make sure you feed it with that attached piece in the front. Also, take light passes at first. Once you have a nice continuous cut across the whole slab, you can go ahead and remove it from the sled. I just use a chisel or a pry bar to get it off, and then remove all the remaining glue, and then flip it over to check for flatness. After you've made sure that side's flat, you can take it back over to the planer and run it through with the face you just planed facing down. This will give a flat reference for the top, and you'll end up with 2 flat sides that are nice and parallel with one another. So to maybe answer a question, the reason you have to use this sled is because if you put a twisted, bowed, or cut board through a planer, it will just follow that twist or bow, and all you end up with is a thinner board with the same defects. As you can see, this sled works pretty good, and it's a lot less expensive than a 12-inch joiner. There are some fancier ones out there, but I like to keep it simple. That pretty much does it. I hope you guys found this useful and you can use one of these in your shop. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, let me know what you thought. Also, future video ideas, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit that notification bell to know when I drop new videos, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Oh, and check out this video.